Welcome to Talk Branding to Me, the podcast for women building intentional businesses and brands rooted in strategy, not just aesthetics.
Branding doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It's more than design. It's how strategy and style come together to create an identity, build trust, and stand out.
We're your hosts, Jaime Wright of Embellished Brands
and Jessie Ford of Untethered Design Studio.
We're brand strategists, designers, and friends who turned our coffee chats into honest conversations about branding done right
and wrong.
If you're feeling stuck or unsure about your brand, you're in the right place.
And now, let's talk branding.
Hey there, everyone. My name is Jaime Wright, and I am your host today. And I'm here with my co-host, Jessie Ford.
Hey, Jaime.
Hello. This is an exciting day for us, Jessie, because why?
This is our first podcast episode.
And we are so excited. We finally made it. It's been months and months, actually, probably years in the making, honestly. If we could look back, we've always enjoyed conversations with each other. And the podcast is just a natural evolution, I think, of our coffee chats that we used to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We moved to the same area years ago, probably around the same time. And long story short, we kind of met through something that some of our listeners might be familiar with, the Rising Tide Society. I don't know how active it still is, Jaime, if there are still chapters.
They actually just shut down recently.
We got the most out of it, I think, while it existed. But we were in the Louisville, Kentucky area, if anyone is listening from there, at any point in time. But yeah, we met through that group and did some networking and kind of connected professionally. And then that blossomed into a really great personal friendship and lots of coffee shop dates and days spent chatting about our businesses and building our individual brands and helping our clients build brands. So I think it kind of started there and has really manifested into, the personal and professional relationship we have now and where life has taken us. We live in different places and we still, I think, work really hard to maintain our connection and, check in with each other and bounce ideas off of each other. And we work together in some different capacities that way. So a podcast was sort of a natural next step to kind of take these conversations and put them on a platform that I think not only helps us, but hopefully helps anyone listening to this.
So we're making the move from Zoom, talking to each other, and we're taking it worldwide by talking with each other and hopefully with some friends in the future on a podcast where we could just talk about the things that we enjoy. We are, dare I say, brand nerds, I think, at heart. We love all things business, branding, design. And so that is much of what we have discussed together in the past. And so at this point in time, we just thought, based on our respective experiences and then even some joint experiences and some projects we've collaborated on, that it was time just to get this conversation going and invite more people into the conversation with us, as well as to share some things that we've learned along the way, because I think our friendship is really special. And our collective and also individual experience is really interesting. It works really well together. I think we've sort of formulated an approach to the topic of branding that we both are in alignment with, and it's worked out well for us when we've worked on projects together. So we just thought it's time to bring it to the world. So that is why we are here to talk about branding. But before we move on any further, it's probably a good idea if we give you just a little bit of a better intro to each of us personally. So Jessie, why don't you start and tell our friends a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have been a graphic designer, really in general, for over 15 years at this point. The professional track I started with many years ago has pretty much stayed consistent, and it's kind of evolved into me eventually taking the leap to full-time self-employment and launching my business, Untethered Design Studio, in 2016. We're kind of getting ready to come up on my 10-year business anniversary in 2026. And it's crazy because I just feel like I've been at this for so long. It's almost hard to stop and sort of think back to like how it all started and provide details around I've just always been a creative at heart. I was always a little girl writing stories and drawing pictures and, considered a career in journalism at one time. I've always been able to write. I've always had the artistic side to me as well. So I feel like becoming a designer was definitely a natural sort of next step for me in terms of being able to create a profession generated, a good income. But when you really look back on it, it's just visual storytelling, right? We've always created content. I was always creating artwork and newsletters and little brochures and magazines and things like that when I was little. So that turned into a degree in publication design from Ohio University. That's where I went. That's where I call home. And then, I worked for several years just in all kinds of sectors, agency, a lot of PR marketing background. That's kind of primarily what I come from. And then a little bit of corporate, worked for a professional sports team at one time. And I also have a bit of a nonprofit background. So it's kind of made me a really well rounded, versatile designer and just kind of creative professional in general. And now I work primarily with female founders, building brands and websites, helping women communicate their story, who they are and what they do in business, helping to position them in a way that makes them unique and stand out and attract ideal clients and customers. So basically, I'm still the same little girl that is telling stories, just in a little bit more of a professional capacity at this point. But I love it. It's hard to imagine doing anything else at this point.
I love that. I especially love how you're kind of able to look back and frame your experience and say, it's still me. I've always loved these things, but now I'm doing it for a living and making money at it. And that's amazing. What more can anyone truly ask for in life? So
Exactly. What's your background, Jamie? What brought you to this point?
I am a business owner myself. I am coming up on 12 years of being a small business owner. I started out doing graphic and web design and marketing, and then that has naturally evolved over the years into a focus more on branding. Simply because, which actually we'll get into this shortly, but because of what I've noticed with my clients, that really branding is the foundation of a lot of the work we were doing with the graphic design and the marketing channels. So prior to that, I have quite a varied background, and Jessie, as you were talking about the things you love to do as a little girl, made me think, well, let me think real quick. What did I really enjoy doing? And I loved arts and crafts. I loved sketching. I do believe there was a moment in time where I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I'm laughing now because that is not at all who I am these days. But I do remember I would spend hours just sketching little outfits, and there may have been some kind of little game or kit back then where you could, like, sketch. They gave you little.
There was, I had it. Fashion plates?
Yes, yes, that's exactly what it was, yes,
Yep.
so, like, I loved playing with those, but then as I got older, I grew up and we got cameras and, all these things, pictures were more popular. I got into scrapbooking and spent a number of years just being really creative, essentially, with kind of like paper and arts and embellishments and just taking something one-dimensional, more or less, and making it two and three-dimensional just by making something out of nothing in a way, with taking a picture and then making artwork out of it and around it, right, on the page. So that, is something I really enjoyed doing, and then I got into college. My bachelor's degree is actually in hotel administration, hospitality, and special events, and so that is what I thought I wanted to do for my whole life, was special events. I always loved throwing a party. I enjoyed it. I think my friends enjoyed it as well. So that led me into the nonprofit sector after college, where I started working with a lot of nonprofits, helping them with their special events because that is how they do the bulk of their fundraising. And from there, of course, because you've got to let people know about what you're doing, you've got to let people know about your organization in order to raise that awareness and raise the funds. Naturally, there's a segue into marketing as well. After a number of years doing that, I was laid off from a job. And so I went back to school for graphic and web design. And then from there, that's how I eventually started my own business. So it's been quite a journey, yet all the pieces seem to fit together really, really well. And
Yeah.
if I think back to that little girl, and if she was ever like one day I'm gonna design logos and websites. First of all, what's a website? But I don't that's not at all what I thought I would be doing, but also I guess I did have a moment where I thought I'd be a fashion designer, so here we are.
Right, right.
Yeah, that is how I have gotten to this place in life. I do work with nonprofits and small business owners. Really love helping women, those that are running nonprofits and those that are building their own business because it's, of course, I am a woman myself. And so I think women just approach business differently. We have, different passions and we have different goals. So I really just love the challenge of helping women work through a lot of the questions and the desires they have and helping them build plans to get there and then walking with them on that journey. So, Jesse, I think you and I are very similar in that way, like who we work with and the types of things that we're really passionate about, and even some of the experiences that we have had with clients that have led to some of the conversations we've had where we're like, this would be a great podcast. And
Yeah,
I think that gives a pretty good background of how we've arrived here today.
it does.
So, do you want to dive into telling our friends about how we approach branding in terms of the different components that we think make it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of approach it from a twofold standpoint. So we sort of break it down quite simply into strategy and style. Strategy being the foundation that the brand is kind of built on. First, creating the foundation, and then creating a way to tell the story around the brand, how to market it effectively, who is the ideal client that you want to reach, what is the mission that you stand behind, what are the values that you stand on, and laying that groundwork first, because that's what ultimately drives the design, which is the styling of the brand, right?
Hmm.
So it's like framing a house, pouring the foundation, kind of creating the blueprint that you follow to get the house built. That's the strategy. The style, the design is how you kind of decorate it afterwards, right? Um, the types of flooring that you use, the light fixtures, the paint colors, all of that. The styling kind of comes second because I think ultimately the strategy drives the design. And that's sometimes the missing piece
Hmm.
that a lot of people don't always understand. I, of course, work in a lot of strategy when I work with clients, but I think with my background primarily being design, it's taken me some years to kind of figure out okay, there are certain things that need to come first before we're designing the mood board, before we're designing logos. What I do is kind of the fun, pretty stuff, that people enjoy and they want to jump into creating. Hey, I want a logo, I want a website. It's awesome. I love it. Me too. But we have to kind of work through some exercises first and kind of take a deep dive into your business and sort of
Hmm.
what it's really about so that we don't have to keep going back and digging up those details later and kind of unearthing things and sort of reinventing the wheel and having to recreate things over time. With a really solid foundation fleshed out right the first time, the
Hmm.
design seamlessly follows and you can always make updates to it and change it over time. Nothing is ever permanent, but you have a really solid identity and online presence and tools to market yourself with when you figure out the strategy first. And I think that's something that you are really strong at, Jamie, specifically just in the way that you work with clients and the exercises that you kind of take them through. And we've been able to partner in a lot of ways, kind of taking this approach with you sort of walking clients through that aspect. And then me kind of coming in to help with some of the styling and it all is able to kind of come together and we're able to tie a nice little, a ribbon around it at the end and present a package to someone that is able to serve them,
Right.
in their business for many years to come.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I know people are always so excited when they decide that they are ready for a new logo or maybe a brand refresh where they're going to take what they've already had and update it in some way. I love those conversations. And then I always feel like I'm the buzzkill when I say, could we backtrack a little bit before we start? I love that you already have an idea of your colors, but since a brand is more than just a logo or colors, can we backtrack a little bit and talk about some fun? I feel like it's an immediate buzzkill almost with some of these clients where they're so excited to move forward, but at the end of the day, I want something that's great for them. And based on my experience, if they don't have that solid brand strategy as a foundation, to go back to your analogy of let's lay the concrete, let's put in some rebar, let's have some solidly built walls
Mhm.
before we start talking about paint colors and curtains and what kind of flooring you're going to have. We need to have a solid foundation in place. And I promise you, it'll last you a lot longer by having this conversation now than if we just skip over the boring stuff like strategy and jump right into the fun stuff like colors and shapes. Because in my
Right.
experience, when we skip those conversations, it's not too long where they come back and they go, I think we need to freshen up the brand again.
Yeah,
So this approach I think we've found helps our clients get more longevity out of what they're building over time. I think it helps them steward their brands better, but also I think it saves them money because they make an investment like this in terms of investing into a brand design fewer times, I think, than those who
Mhm.
skip what might be the boring brand strategy stuff and go right into the design. I think they're spending more money in the long run because they're rebranding a lot.
For sure. And I think that when you have the right foundation in place and you do come up with a strategy for where you want to be seen, how you want to be seen, your messaging, how people will kind of interpret you, how they will experience you. A lot of that again drives visuals. I don't think people always
Mhm.
realize when you have those puzzle pieces kind of put together first, then you have a reason for why you do what you do. You're able to design with intention better when there's a strategy in place because
Mhm.
then you have a reason for why you're picking the colors that you're picking and the typography, how you lay out a website, how you just create the entire visual experience that someone has, whether it's online or offline, not just designing for design's sake,
Mm.
but having a reason behind what you're doing and not just picking colors because you like them.
Mhm.
There has to be some intention there. And I think strategy, again, helps to really pave the way for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, now that we've laid that foundation, pun intended, let's dive into a segment that we think is going to be fun. Jesse, do you want to introduce the segment?
Yeah. So we have decided that in starting this podcast, something fun as a way to kind of end each episode is to have a segment called Talk Branding to Me. We will take turns kind of asking each other just something branding related. Maybe it's a client project experience that we had, a funny story, something that's timely in the industry, something that people are familiar with or maybe can relate to. Just neat little branding nuggets, if you will, that you can kind of take with you at the end of each episode. I guess we can go ahead and
Yeah.
dive in. This is our
Yep.
very first one. Jamie, talk branding to me.
Okay, I'd love to. And I think since this is our inaugural podcast episode, and if in the spirit of thinking about great branding and maybe because our audience is women, what a better way to kick off this Talk Branding to Me segment than by giving a shout out, a big nod, a hat tip to the queen, Dolly Parton. I can't think of a better person that embodies branding, brand strategy, and all the things branding than her. She's got so much going on right now, and I am just so fascinated watching all of this unfold. So, for those of you who don't maybe follow Dolly Parton as closely, she is kicking it successfully in terms of brand deals that she's got going on. And let me just tell you about a few of them, and then we'll kind of break it down just a little bit. But she's got symphony shows that are going to be all over the country where there's a performance of her songs that go along with a symphony. Then she's got Broadway musical. This woman also has a hotel that's going to be opening soon, a museum. She's partnered with a company to brand travel stops. So say goodbye to Bucky's and hello to Dolly's. She has jewelry collabs with Kendra Scott. She's got frozen meals and baking mixes, and this is all even beyond Imagination Library and Dollywood. She's got a home goods line and cookbook. She was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, what has she not done? And so talk branding to me, Dolly, I would love to just talk branding. Please talk
Yeah.
branding to
We
me.
want Dolly to talk branding to us.
Yes. You know what? Let's officially start a campaign to get Dolly on this podcast to talk branding to us. What is so fascinating, and really this is the point of talking about her today, she has come such a long way from her roots in music. That's where she got her start. And yet she is able to stay active and stay relevant beyond the boundaries of music. So, all of the things that I just shared with you or friends about all of the things that Dolly's just got up her sleeve and things that she's been working on, frozen meals, baking mixes, cookbooks, travel stops, jewelry. She even has jeans with Good American. She's everywhere. Some of these collabs I know I was maybe a little surprised by when I first heard about them or got an eyebrow raise or a that's interesting. But you know what? It makes sense. She's got, I'm presuming, a wonderful team behind her. There's obviously, I think, a long term strategy around the brand of Dolly Parton. They are working the strategy. Let me tell you, this is like poetry in motion here. This is a beautiful strategy that we are now seeing the fruit of as these things come to life. I'm impressed and I am a fan. I cannot wait to see how all of these projects unfold for her. And I will also just be cheering her on because this is a woman that understands the power of branding and she has also cultivated that power for herself and yet does so and makes it fun for the rest of us and relevant for the rest of us where we could engage with her brand and have a little piece of Dolly in our homes or wear a necklace or wear some jeans or taking a road trip we'll stop in at Dolly's travel stop. She has made herself approachable and available for the rest of us who love her. And I just say kudos. That is a job very well done from a branding aspect.
I love that. I just want to add something too. We've kind of talked about this just in our own conversations, but she's so admirable. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, the whole world knows who Dolly is. And, we could go on and on about what she does, and people see it, all the time. But she is staying relevant. You're exactly right, because this is also nothing new, right? She's been around
Mhm,
forever. She has always pursued endeavors well beyond music, like you said. So she's kind of been a serial entrepreneur, I feel like,
mhm.
for decades at this point. It's certainly not anything recent, but the way she continues to roll out endorsements and new products and stay relevant, like you said, getting older. I mean, she's not slowing down. She's not
Ah,
ever going away. Thank goodness she is a
mhm.
permanent fixture
Tell you
in
what,
our
she needs to
world.
take whatever that is and bottle that up for the rest of us.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
buy that in a heartbeat.
Yes, absolutely. I just have always loved her. Takes me back to an editorial illustration class that I had in college, and we
Mhm.
had to draw a portrait of a celebrity or well known figure, and I did Dolly Parton. So this goes back to like 2006 or 7 for me, and I've just always been a fan of Dolly. Reba's another one I feel like is very similar. I've just always been, a country music fan anyway. Just the way that those women, are such symbols, well beyond entertainment and
Mhm.
what they did for a day job for a long time, and just these brands and these identities and these platforms they've created are incredible. But for us, kind of day to day small business, female business owners, I think it's really inspirational. We can certainly take a few chapters out of their book because they have definitely um, written the guidelines for how to properly build, I think, a blend of a personal and professional brand, right? Like who they
Yeah.
are professionally, but they also just they're Dolly and Reba. I'm just throwing Reba in there just because I feel like she's very similar in terms of how they've been able to kind of blend the 2. And people love them,
Yeah.
right? They love them, so they put their trust in them, and that's why they buy
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
them. So there are a lot of lessons to be taken there.
Absolutely. And we could probably do a better case study on Dolly and or Reba in a future episode to just cut a bow on this talk branding to me segment. You're right. I think it's inspirational. It's aspirational. When we're small business owners, we've got our heads down, we're grinding, we're helping other people build their brands. And yet if we just took a step back and maybe made some long-term plans or whatever it is, but I think it's just a reminder to all of us that things do take time, but they also take strategy. They take intention. And then you can have fun with how things look and what the end result winds up being. I think this is probably a perfect example of what we started out this episode talking about is how branding is much more than colors or a logo itself. Great branding is reliant on a strong strategic foundation. And I think Dolly Parton is a wonderful example of that we could see in our present day.
Yes. The queen, as you said. The
That's
queen
right.
of it. The queen of it all.
We are now at the end of our very first podcast episode, and
Yay.
I'm so excited that we can put a check mark next to this box and wrap things up for now. For those of you who are listening, thank you so much for joining us on Talk Branding to Me, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Talk Branding to Me. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking about your brand, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow business owner who's ready to think deeper about branding and have fun with it too.
For more branding insights, behind the scenes conversations, and resources to support your brand journey, connect with us at Embellished Brands and at Untethered Design on social media.
Don't forget, branding is more than just aesthetics. It's both strategy and style.
Until next time, remember, you're fully capable of building a brand you're proud of, and we're here cheering you on every step of the way.